Hey YouTube, this is Rescue Mutant Part Fan 62. So please note this. I am going to keep this as simple as I can, but I'm not going to guarantee anything. Also, there will be some blood and some drug references throughout this video. So if you're not comfortable with that, I understand. So let's get started. This is my review of Scream 5. Now, from what I understand, this is not a sequel to the other Scream movies. This is kind of going off of it a little bit. Now, let's get started. Now, first off, with this girl in a good sized house, basically in the middle of nowhere. Uh, she is cooking herself dinner and texting her friend named Amber. Now, don't really know who Amber is, and she doesn't really play a key role in this movie. So, uh, her name is Tara Carpenter. Now, Tara is making dinner for herself when her landline rings, and it's this scary voice. So, it talks about the movie based off the movie, movie in a movie called Stab, which is that movie's version of Scream, and talks about some of the different characters and how she got one of them she got wrong, and so basically her friend got stabbed. So she was crying and stuff, and so on her phone, she and the locks in the house can be controlled by phone. So it started to, say system unlock, system lock, system lock, system unlock. And as she answered the front door, Scream kind of slashed her like that. So she locked the door for a few minutes. It kept doing the unlock, unlocks, and then the landline called again. Scream was like, "How do you know I didn't get in your house?" And so basically, he stabbed her like 4 or 5 times. So, but she was able to survive. Now, one of the stabs, which you don't see much nowadays, is through the hand with knife. So Tara went to the hospital. Now, Tara's sister, now you about a couple hours away, Tara's sister got a call saying Tara was in the hospital. Now, her name is Samantha Carpenter, um, and she's like, "Oh crap, I have to go." So, her boyfriend, which is named Richie, I think, uh, they're like, "Okay, let's get going." So they head toward this town called, I think it's like Westwood or something like that. So on the news, they started talking about the murders starting to pile up. So um, Sam and her boyfriend visited Tara, and basically he's like, "How you doing?" And then Sam started telling her sister on basically stuff that she kept to herself about how her mother was basically raped and she got conceited from a rapist and a murderer. So, and Tara's like, basically was like, "Get the F out of my room." So she left, and then as Tara was in the waiting room, or like a little area you can kind of relax for a few minutes, Scream came out of nowhere and kidnap her there, but she got away. The officer, um, I think it's Deputy Winston, um, basically had his gun and looked and basically didn't see anybody, but she said he was there, and it was something where it was like, and then randomly, Samantha's boyfriend came out of nowhere, basically like, what's going on, and stuff like that. So, while that's going on, you get into Samantha's, or no, these are more Jenny's friends. So you have um, a guy named Wes, who's kind of where his mother is more of like the person to keep him safe, even though she's the deputy for the town. So she worries about him. You have a girl named Amber, who is kind of like the spoiled brat, kind of the know-it-all. And you have another girl named um, Mindy, um, who is kind of like the hidden lesbian slash stoner of the group. And then you have a jock. I didn't really get his name. But um, so those are the friends of it. So Samantha, after they saw Tara, they Samantha was like, okay, what can we do to stop Scream? So her and her boyfriend went to deputy, former Deputy Dewey, and so he was basically kind of like, he didn't want him there, but he gave him 2 minutes to explain what's going on. And so she was like, basically, my sister got attacked by Scream. She got stabbed. She's in the hospital. What should we do? And so they, so he kicked them out, but he did say something in the movie which is rather unique. He basically said the killer is more than likely either the love interest or somebody you don't expect. So that's going to play a key thing in the rest of this movie. So after that, former Deputy Dewey started to think about that a minute. So he called Sidney Prescott, who, as you know was one of the key roles in the other movies. So he called him, saying basically, Scream is back. He has killed 2 or 3 people so far, and so, and he's like, "Are you safe?" And she's like, "Yeah, I don't want to go back to that town." So once he knew she was safe, he texted Gail Weathers, who basically, and he basically said the same thing, just in text message form. And so then you get cut to Deputy Hicks' house. So basically, Deputy Hicks and her son was getting ready for dinner. Deputy Hicks was going to get sushi, and well, the son went to take a shower. So, as Deputy Hicks got toward the end of the road, uh, Scream called, and basically he's like, "I'm going to kill your son." So, at the turnaround, she turned her lights and siren on, and turn and come back and while she was going to her house, she's like, "This is Deputy Hicks. Um, Scream is at my house. I need backup." So, well, so she got to her house with lights and siren blazing, and as she was running, Scream dotted out from. I'm not sure if it was from the side part of the porch or beside the porch or whatever, and basically stabbed her multiple times and killed her right there in broad daylight. So when the son got out of the shower, um, he saw that his mom called, and so after he got dressed, um, he went to look for his mom, and then he heard the door open, and he thought his mom came back with the food. She was not, so he looked, and as he was at the door, Scream popped out of nowhere and basically put a knife through his neck and killed him right there. So Samantha, or Sam, got to the house as well as Gail Weathers, and basically is like, well, because Samantha's, because one of the deputies asked how she knew the son, and he's basically like, "I'm friends with him. I didn't know the mother that much," and then Gail was in shock. So then you cut back to the hotel, where Tara was in her hospital bed, and she heard something outside. So she's like, "Hello," and nobody answered. So she, struggling, got into a wheelchair, and as she's trying to wheel it along, her fingers and stuff started to bleed from the stab wounds and stuff. So Scream came out of nowhere to try and kill her again. And so Scream was telling Samantha, because Samantha called Tara, and basically Scream's like, "Okay, you have two choices here. You can either rescue your sister or your boyfriend because um, uh, they got there and he took out the boyfriend, and so Deputy Dewey was there as well. So as they got, so finally they got everybody together, and as they were going into the elevator, Deputy Dewey's like, "Okay, I have to kill him," and Samantha's like, "Who gives a crap? We need to go." So Deputy Dewey let them go, and then he was, unfortunately, this is one of his downfalls. He let all the bullets go on the floor, and he had enough bullet for one shot. And so when he got to where Scream was, because he was passed out, Scream came out of nowhere and basically killed him from two knives, one in the front and the one in the back, and kind of came up. So there goes Deputy Dewey. So as they were going, Sam saw Sydney and Gail sitting there, and Sydney's like, "Oh, I'm glad you're safe, but I'm sorry this happened." And she's like, "Thanks." And then a few minutes later, um, they left, and Gail was like, "Are you gonna let them get away?" She's like, "No, I put a tracker on them." And so they got away. They were getting near the end of town, and then Tara realized she doesn't have her inhaler. Um, so the boyfriend's like, do we need it? Samantha's like, yes, that's how she breathes. So the boyfriend's like, fine. And then Tara remembers she had a inhaler at someone's house. I forgot whose house it was. So farther back, um, with Sydney and Gail, they realized they were going somewhere, and then they realized where they were going to, and they're like, crap. So now, while in this as well, one of the person Samantha can see sometimes in like a mirror or a car mirror or something like that is her father, who is dead at this point. But he seemed like all scraped up and stuff like that. And so they got to the house, and this is where a majority of the ending part of the movie happens. So in there, you have all the typical stereotypes in the house. So you have Mindy, who is watching Stab, and then started to get to know another girl on the couch next to her. So then you have uh, Amber, who's, basically like, the know it all and the person who acts like a jackass. So, when Tara and Samantha came in, they acted all surprised that they were there, and you know, basically, um, they said, "Scream is loose. This is a perfect place for him to kill everybody. You need to get out now." So, a few minutes later, people left. Now, while this was going on, in the back of the house, um, Chad, somebody named Chad, who I'm not entirely sure how he fit in the story, um, was trying to find his girlfriend, Liv. So he, he apparently had this tracker or something for her, which is fine. And it claimed she was nearby, but he didn't see her. So Scream basically came out and then and attacked Chad. Well, while that was going on, and then as he was trying to stab him, uh, some car lights pulled up and Scream ran. So Chad was just there. Not, and I think he died. I'm not entirely sure because you never really saw him again. But so Sydney and Gail got to the house, and then they realized what house they were at. And that was Billy Loomis's house. So once everybody, so as Sydney and Gail were trying to go up the pathway, Amber came out and was like, acting like Scream stabbed her and basically shot a gun and hit Gail. And basically was like, uh, and she fell. So Gail is like, you came to kill Scream, so this is what we're going to do. So they got in and they looked around, and then so they went upstairs, and Sydney started to shoot every door. So then in the bathroom, she heard out. She opened and saw the boyfriend for Samantha. And she's like, "What are you doing in here?" And he's like, hiding from the killer. So a few minutes later, Scream attacked both of them. And so, and in the kitchen, um, basically they were going to try and kill Gail, Sydney, and so then one of the people that you didn't realize who was the killer in this movie was the boyfriend. So he basically was trying to cut Samantha. And so Bill, the boyfriend and Amber was going on about how like she saw him and he liked some of his ideas or something. And so this is where the plot twist comes. So finally they were able to set free. Well, Sydney and Gail was taking care of Amber. Samantha was going to take care of the boyfriend. In this, you never really saw Tara except for when she was taped into a closet. So in the kitchen with Sydney and Gail, Amber's like, what's going on about different things. So, what they did was I forgot exactly what they did, but they somehow managed to have her turn the stove on. So they kind of was shooting at her. She kind of was stumbling back, and then her sleeve or something caught fire, and she within seconds got engulfed in fire. And so they shot at her, and she fell on the floor. So they thought that was done with that. So then they started looking for the boyfriend, and so Samantha and him started to tussle, and was like, and then you got to where Samantha got in charge of this and basically told him, "You don't F with a serial killer's daughter," and cut his throat. And then that was it. And so they shot at him a couple times to make sure he's dead. And then the other girl, Amber, came rushing in to try and attack him. And then you heard bang, and everybody looked where that came from, and it was Tara. And so that's how all that happened. So then they made sure everybody was okay. And then the ambulances came at dusk. And Tara's like, "Can we go to a different hospital?" They're like, "Yeah." Um, so before Samantha was going to ride with Tara to the hospital, she was making sure Sydney and Gail were okay. They were. Um, and so she got into the hospital, or got into the ambulance to go to the hospital. So, with that being said, what my thoughts on the movie? Now, overall, I like the movie. Now, I haven't seen all the Scream movies, so I don't exactly know how it goes with the storyline. But I will say, for what it was not bad. Um, one of the things I liked that they did in the movie was basically, without actually saying it, laugh at Halloween, some of the bigger franchises like Halloween or Friday the 13th, with them having several movies out there, with Scream only having five. So that was kind of neat. Now, I will say, people like Jenny Ortega and some of the others were great, in that, especially with, especially when they were supposed to be in pain or getting stabbed or something like that. Also, I am glad they brought some of the original people back, such as Deputy Dewey, Sidney Prescott, and Gil Weathers, to kind of get bring the old school feel back, and how that was. Now, one of the things I also liked about this movie compared to other horror movies out there is, besides the um, few sexual tensions in the movie, there really was not any sex per se. Now, I am also glad they incorporated more, well, some LGBT uh, people in the movie. Um, so, which was uh, the black girl. I can't think of her name offhand. Uh, it was Mindy. Mindy was, now, she was kind of like the lesbian stoner type in the movie, and so I am glad they incorporated something like that into it without actually having, like, you know, and not having like a full on sex scene. So that is one thing I am glad, because that and movies like that are starting to get kind of old now. So, and the last thing is, I also, the one thing I like that they did in the movie as well is kind of like, you know, where, they question you for going downstairs alone to get more beer. Now, I thought that was kind of funny, because it's like, they were like, "Are you stupid? This is where the killer could come and kill you, and nobody would even know," and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of funny. But overall, for what it was, it actually was not a bad movie, and I do highly recommend you see it. And if you have, let me know in the comments below on if you've seen it, what you thought about it, and what do you think about them bringing the characters back. Who do you think they should have gotten rid of?